morning. Today is Thursday, April 8th, 2021, and we are here for a work session. And as always, we will start with the pledge. Catherine, can you please take the lead?
Yes. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Catherine. Before we begin today, I have one announcement or one point to make to the community. Yesterday, Riverhead lost an esteemed educator, Carrie Lynn Stromsky, an elementary school teacher who adopted all the children that she encountered throughout the many years that she served our community as a teacher. She was the face of the Riverhead School District, and we all mourn her passing. Our condolences go out to her family, the Riverhead School District, and the countless children and parents that she has touched throughout the years. We thank you for the footprint you left, Carrie, and Godspeed.
I'd just like to add to that. I worked with Carrie. She was a dear friend. Carrie is a great loss to our community. She was a very strong advocate for our school district and for our entire town. She fought valiantly. She was a warrior. And my prayers go out to Carrie's family and to the school family. It was a great loss.
Thank both of you for mentioning that. She was a very special lady. Great family, the Wickland family, and my heart definitely goes out to them.
Okay. All right, one quick announcement as a reminder, those 16 years of age and older are now eligible to receive the COVID-19 vaccination. Residents seeking vaccination may call the senior liaison, Jim Wooten, at 631-727-3200, extension 653, to pre-register. Thereafter, residents will receive a call from Sun River Health Services with an appointment to receive their vaccination. Residents may also call the New York State Vaccination Hotline at 1-833-697-4829. Moving forward, our first discussion of the day is a matter concerning SECRA, updating SECRA to Chernoff Medical Suites. This is back on this week's calendar after discussion, and I'm going to ask Greg Bergman to come forward. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning, thank you. And we do have in the room Charles Cuddy, the attorney representing the applicant. Just to bring the board back up to speed, the board is reviewing a special permit application to establish a professional office within the Rural Corridor Zoning District. The project site is 323 and 331 Main Road in Aquabog. The project proposes a two-story office building with a footprint of 5,340 square feet and a total gross floor area of 10,377 square feet, as well as related parking, lighting, landscaping, sanitary, and stormwater improvements. This town board did classify the action as a type 1 action by resolution number 2020-098 back in February of last year. As that 30-day coordination period has ended, the board is now in a position to assume lead agency and make a determination of significance. At last week's work session, the board had brought up some other projects in the surrounding area, namely the Aquabog Medical Suites and 374 Main Road projects. Those are both special permit applications to establish professional offices in the immediate vicinity. Those applications are slightly different. Just for generally speaking, the Aquabog Medical Suites is an application to develop two properties with a one-story professional office on each parcel, one being an 8,100 square foot building and one being a 6,400 square foot building. And the 374 Main Road project, when it was initially proposed, was proposed as a two-story building with a footprint of 7,500 square feet. However, during work sessions, that plan was revised at the direction of the board to show a one-story building. That application is now proposing a one-story, 15,000 square foot building. On pages 3, 4, and 5 of my staff report, I did just do a quick assessment. I took a drive down Main Road. took pictures of some existing structures in the area. The surrounding area is a mix of commercial, agricultural, and residential, and there are a pretty wide range of buildings, including 1-story, 1.5-story, 2-story, and 2.5-story buildings. You see those pictures, figures 3 through 9 in my staff report. I do note that while there is precedence for 2.5-story buildings in that area, they are typically residential as opposed to commercial. However, the project that the applicants currently proposing was reviewed by the ARB, and it did receive ARB approval back in 2018. They are proposing materials that are recommended by the guidelines, natural materials. They're proposing some hardy plank, some natural stone, so it would blend in with the surrounding area. One of the guidelines within the town code for rural corridor states that for parcels 3 acres or greater in area, the proposed floor area shall be distributed into a minimum of 4 buildings. Basically, for parcels 3 acres or larger, it was supposed to be a campus-style development. Being that the total acreage of these parcels is 1.89 acres, it falls short of that threshold, and as such, that's why we're seeing a 2-story building as opposed to a campus-style development, because they just lack the land area to do that. I also did note that the rural corridor dimensional regulations prescribe a maximum building height of 35 feet. The proposed building height for this application is 32 feet, which does comply with the dimensional regulations. And one other thing that was brought up last week, I did recommend landscaping to be looked at. I did at figure number 10, I did take a picture of the existing vegetation on the site. As it's kind of difficult to ascertain where the proposed setbacks are and the building lines there, I do recommend that the applicant flag the required 50-foot front yard with some high visibility tape in order to allow the board to really assess the logistics of retaining some of that natural vegetation as opposed to just clear cutting it and doing like a nice manicured landscaped area. If there's any ability to retain some of that vegetation to provide some screening, I would recommend that. So we're really here to just, kind of wrap up any discussions with the board, hopefully move forward with the negative declaration, allow the zoning board to act on their Board of Appeals application, and then process the application further.
Greg, you answered the questions for me that we discussed the other day, not realizing that the difference between the two properties, one 3-point-something acres, where they're allowed to do that, and this one where it's restraining. I have no problem with this. That was, my concern was that we wanted them both to look the same, but understanding we can't do that because of the property or the lot sizes, I'm fine with this.
Correct.
I agree 100% with Tim. I wasn't aware of the 3-acre threshold, and this makes perfect sense to me.
Right.
So first of all, Greg, thank you for the thorough report with lots of information in it. I found that your report this morning very helpful. I mean, my only concern is that there are no other 2-story office buildings or other buildings. There's the homes, but there aren't yet. I'm just concerned that this sets a precedent, and this is the start of this in an area where they really are trying to retain their rural character. I understand the lot size and such. I just do want to express that. And even though residential are tall, or a residential house that's 2-story is a lot different than an office building that's 2-story. So, that's just where I stand. I don't know how the community would feel about it, and, I do see all sides of the issue.
Catherine, I agree with what you said, but for me, at the end of the day, it comes down to a property owner's rights, and they're allowed to do it on this parcel
Right.
based on the zoning. I would much rather see 1-story, as I know the residents in the area would rather see it. But we also have to, I feel we have to adhere to what the law is and what their rights are, and that's, unfortunately, it's allowed at this point in time.
Yeah, and I certainly agree the property owners have rights. Now, the other one would have had to be a special permit going across the street, because
They're all special permits. The use is the specially permitted. That's why it's before the board, is the professional office use. Again, it's not really, the aesthetics of it, while it can be taken into consideration, the board is here to approve the use itself.
Right.
If I can,
I mean, just to be perfectly honest, I am just concerned that this is the start of the change of the look of the area, that's all.
I mean,
Thank
I
you.
would offer, if that's a concern of the board, take that under the consideration for the comprehensive plan, but, we have an application here that has been submitted under the current zoning. That
I just
Well,
want to
unless
make sure
you-
I can get in.
Yeah, unless you
I
did
think
a-
let's,
unless you did a secra and looked at the impacts of it, but definitely it's something that has to be addressed in the master plan update, and
Sure.
that's where the community, should be
should
weighing in
get
on
in.
what they want to see in their area and look to the future on that, so.
I believe Mr. Cuddy would like to.
Good morning,
Hi,
Mr.
Mr.
Cuddy.
Cuddy.
Good
Morning, Councilor.
Good morning.
How are you?
Charles Cuddy, thank you for allowing me to come in. I would like to just add a few things if I could. The building's going to be set back 60 feet so that the area can have some trees and whatever's necessary to screen. But
Correct.
there's a very important element that we should note in the discussion, and that is the reason for 2 stories, and the 2 stories has been approved several times, but they tried to massage this building so it would fit their needs. The orthopedists that we're talking about are Mark Chernoff and his brother Ira Chernoff. And they have a specialty, particularly with spinal injuries. In their building, which is really unique, I think, for orthopedists, they have an x-ray machine, an x-ray technician. They plan on having an MRI, which is the gold standard for diagnosis of any orthopedic injuries. Those are big, big units, and they take a lot of room. So they also hope to have, and I believe they will, a rehabilitation area similar to St. Charles rehabilitation. So that's the reason for having the 2nd story, because a lot of the room that's going to be taken up are by these diagnostic type of activities. And if you've ever been in an x-ray, and most people have, or had an MRI, that's a separate area. And that's why they need this 2nd floor, because a lot of the 1st floor will be taken up that wouldn't normally be taken up in a medical office. So it really has a significant purpose to it.
Thank you, Mr. Cuddy, and unfortunately, most of us have had an x-ray or an MRI. I appreciate hearing also, I can always look at all sides of an issue. I just think that when we look at the master plan update, we need to think big picture. It's all a balance for us with the master plan update. We want to retain our character, but we want progress at the same time. So it's just, we need to find that perfect balance, and that's why it's really important for people to weigh in at on the update. But thank you for all the information. I understand what you're saying.
Thank you.
And I totally agree. We're not in a position right now to change, to stop a project where the zoning calls for it, and that's why we're here. And I'm glad to hear that this type of facility is coming to the East End, because many of us are going to use it. And again, when you're talking about the charm, and I agree with Catherine, that is the sole purpose of the master plan, is to work with the community and enhance and make everything work so we can move forward. So I am fully supportive.
I think I had initial concerns, but I guess the size of the property has clarified that, the reason also one. It's not completely unusual. I know the Meeting House Deli is really a 2-story, probably mixed use, and so is the Modern Snack Bar is also 2 stories, so it's not completely unusual. It falls within the, the outline of the plan because of the lot size. So I don't have any objections to it. I just wanted to make sure we were fair to other applicants,
Sure.
that we're reviewing each one in a fair manner. And it
But it
sounds
was a
like the
different
size of the
lot
lot is
size.
what clarifies that, right?
Correct. That was
Yeah.
the threshold why it wasn't fair to compare. It's not apples to apples, so that was the reason for that differentiation.
That was probably all of our initial reaction was, are we being fair to everyone? I think
Correct.
you've clarified that, and we are.
Good
Well,
job.
Modern Snack
Thank
Bar,
you.
I think your eye goes to that very cool retro sign first.
Yes, it does. Maybe they'll put up a retro sign.
Let's not get
Thanks,
crazy.
Greg.
Let's not get crazy.
Thank you, Greg. Have a good day. All right, moving forward, the next discussion we have is concerning our audit. We have Jeffrey Davoli. Are they coming on through Zoom? They are. Okay. Jeffrey Davoli and Jennifer Clark with PKF O'Connor Davies to present their audit for the report of the year ending December 31, 2019. Good morning, Jeffrey and Jennifer.
So just before they start this morning, I just had one question about this. I don't know if the supervisor or Bill can confirm. I'm just wondering why the audit was already posted on a site before the board got to see it. It was posted, I believe, on the Municipal Securities Regulatory Board site, where you have to file your statements for bonds. And I think that was posted in March, and we didn't get it. We're just now looking at it as a board now. So I just want to clarify that, because I think we can all understand that the financial wherewithal of the town is one of our responsibilities as a board member that's of utmost importance. So I would always want to see stuff before it gets posted somewhere, so that we're able to talk it through like we're going to be doing today.
And that's typically what would happen. However, the audit report is usually due by the end of the year, so the financial institutions can see them and so forth. We have bonds, so Moody's gets to see those. There's a bunch of different organizations that get them, whether it's for CDBG funds and so forth. So when it was finalized, before it was presented, we sent it out there for these organizations to go and get those, so that we continued to get the grant funds that we needed and so forth. So they had access to them.
Well, and
So
I understand that, Bill, but you have to understand that as a board, as a board member, I take my financial responsibility very seriously. And why was it put up there then why wasn't it brought to us? Are we seeing it like weeks after the fact?
The auditors do come in and present their findings and present the audit report to this board. However, that's not required. I understand that we do that so that the board is aware of what's going on with our finances. This was just a special situation where we were past the end of the year, and these other organizations needed these financial statements for their purposes. And once we engage a CPA firm to prepare our audit, at that point, whatever the audit report and findings are, they are. We can't change it as a board. We can understand it as a board, and that's what they're trying to do here. And again, because of the fact that we normally have this done by December 30th, and it goes out to those institutions, we had put it out on the site because we were getting requests, when are your financial audits going to be done? When are your financial audits going to be done?
Okay, but I mean, that still doesn't exactly answer my question. Were you aware that
Yes, and it's a matter of process, and they're just presenting to us today, but these organizations like Moody, they needed to review what we had, and we're here today. And I guess if you ever put it back up, to Moody's or whatever, just send a copy to the board.
Yep.
Okay, we can't change the outcome, and there is no public input on it. Unfortunately, I'm big on public input. Once the external audit is completed, it is completed. There was no adjustments made to it. And there was a process where, again, we have, different organizations that need to review, and they're here now to present the final product.
I
And
guess-
next time you put it out to them, put it out to the board. But again, we can't change anything.
I
So
guess the
whether you
further
got it
answer-
then or here, it's the same, it's the same delivery, unfortunately. And we're gonna see what they present to you today. So,
Bill, how many days was it when it was posted to the site versus when we first got it? Because we got it almost 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, 2 weeks ago tomorrow, I think we got it
It
online.
was right about then. We may have posted it the day before. I don't remember the timing of it, but I know when we let you know, here's what it is, that's when it went out there. We didn't get to, and it may have been a day or two before you guys actually received the audit. But it's
think it
been
was a
done
few
for a couple of
weeks.
weeks, and we may have posted it to the site the day before we gave you copies, only because, again, we were getting a lot of requests for it because it was late.
I thought it was more than that, but, I mean, I'll move on, but I just think, we should be apprised, and plus, when you're doing it in a work session, the public is hearing it too. So thank you.
So just to go further on your question, I thought I had answered it, but I'll also say, in the future, I'll make sure the date it's posted is after the date you guys receive it. That's all I can say.
Well, that's much better. That's how it's usually always been done, I think.
Okay. Good morning, Jeffrey, and again, and Jennifer.
Good morning, Supervisor. Now, Supervisor, is it okay if I share my screen?
Sure,
I think
absolutely.
everybody is seeing this. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
No, okay.
Okay, now we can.
Okay. So, thank you for a couple of minutes today. I think that's all I'll need. These are the results for the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2019. So they are a bit dated.
Jeffrey, I think you have the wrong screen. We see the Zoom screen, we see
I
the
apologize.
general. So
Yeah.
X out of that and then bring up and then press share at the bottom. Okay, see a PowerPoint opening, okay. X out of that, or minimize that Zoom. The little minus, yeah, minimize the Zoom. Okay, now open up your item.
Let me just close out of a couple things here. I apologize. Is that better?
Yes,
Okay, I apologize for the
it's
technical
fine.
difficulty there. Supervisor, thank you again for some time today. I know you got a busy agenda, so I'll move relatively quickly. As you say, I do have my associate Jennifer Clark, who's a manager. Jennifer came into the engagement and at the back end after the engagement manager at the time left and went to private. So, I thank Jennifer Clark for her assistance in wrapping this up. You may be aware that AVZ merged with PKF O'Connor Davies, which is the top 30 in the country firm. This audit was engaged and performed under our old branding, AVZ, and that's why it's on our letterhead. Any future, see, PKF O'Connor Davies. I'll just go quickly through the agenda. We're going to go through our responsibilities as auditors, your responsibilities as management and those charged with government. I'll quickly go through some audit scope and approach items, financial highlights, and then there are some required communications I just would like to go over with you. Audit status, the work was performed in accordance with our plan. We spend probably 1/3 of the time planning the audit and 2/3 of the time executing the audit. The idea is to issue an unmodified or clean opinion. That was what was issued in this case, which means that the financial statements are fairly presented. Our responsibilities as auditors are forming and expressing an opinion about the financial statements being presented fairly in all material respects in relation to GAAP. GAAP is generally accepted accounting principles. And we plan and perform that audit in accordance with the professional standards, which are generally accepted auditing standards. We consider internal controls. We don't express an opinion on your internal control system, but we do use that in our audit. We accumulate misstatements, if any, identified during the audit. We conduct our audit in professional skepticism always, and then we evaluate the presentation and supplemental information in relation to the financial statements taken as a whole. That supplemental information is budget comparisons and funding progress on OPEB and net pension liabilities. We have a responsibility of communicating significant matters to you. That's what we're doing today. We consider internal control as it relates to significant deficiencies and material weaknesses. We do have a couple of material weaknesses to go over with you today as well. We consider fraud and illegal acts, but our audit can't be relied on to disclose those. We have to report that there were no fraud or illegal acts discovered during our audit. And we considered the process used by management to formulate sensitive accounting estimates and conclusions about the reasonableness of those estimates. Your responsibilities as management and those charged with government is selecting and using appropriate accounting policies, presenting fairly financial statements, establishing and maintaining internal controls, complying with laws, regs, and provisions of contracts, and making sure that all financial records and all relevant information for us to draw our conclusion is presented to us. And you're also responsible for communicating with us and overseeing the financial reporting process. And of course, management and those charged with governance is always setting the proper tone at the top and making sure that there's a culture of honesty and high ethical standards. These are just some of the audit scope and approach considerations we make. We consider significant audit areas. These are significant audit areas because of either balances, size of balances, complexity of transactions, or the use of estimates, cash, accounts receivable and revenues, accounts payable, expenditures, fund balance, grants, payroll, and we also consider subsequent events and audit procedures in accordance with GAS, which is government auditing standards. Just some highlights. The net position, which is the full accrual government-wide statement of operations, presented in the financial statements, show an increase in net position of $2.4 million, roughly 7%, for the year ended December 31st, 2019. And there was a $3.3 million increase in the business type activities, which you are aware are the water and the sewer funds. The net position in total for the town was $34.3 million in governmental activities and $57.7 million in the business type activities. In the proprietary funds, which are the sewer and the water funds, they increased by $2.1 million in the sewer fund during the year to $27.4, and they increased by $1.2 million in the water fund, or 4%, $30.3. This is just a disclosure of the fund balances, which is the like-to-date results of the operating fund. The general fund, which is the main operating fund of the town, fund balance increased by 58%, or $2.5 million. There was a small decrease in the highway fund. Capital projects fund, which everybody recognizes is not a year-by-year fund, but is an accumulation of project balances, increased by $648,000. And the community preservation fund decreased by $1.6 million in 2019. That decrease seems large, but it is largely related to the transfer to the debt service fund to service the debt on prior year's purchases, offset by the 2% property tax, Peconic Land Trust revenues. On the right-hand side, fund balances are broken down into various categories, total $20.5 million, non-spendable, restricted fund balance, which is mostly the fund balance in the CPF fund and the restricted fund in the capital projects fund, assigned fund balance, which is $5.7 million across all funds, which is the funds, the non-major funds, non-general fund funds, and the unassigned fund balance in the unassigned category is $4.9 million, which is predominantly the fund balance in the general fund, offset by one fund which had a small deficit, which we'll talk about in a second. Just some more budgetary highlights. Revenues were less than budget by $480,000, but the expenditures were under budget by $3.8 million because of those savings in various categories. There was a planned fund use in the general fund of $522,000, and the unassigned fund balance, as I said, was $5.4 million, which represents 11% of the 2020, which is generally the way that's looked at, is as a ratio to the subsequent year's general fund budget. This is full of exhibits, some required communications. One of our communications is the AU 260 letter, and we have communicated with you upon engagement in the engagement letter that was dated June 8th, 2020. Normally we would be engaged much earlier and perform these procedures much earlier, but there was a slight holdup in the issuance of the prior year statements, which caused us to be engaged a little bit later than we. There's some qualitative aspects of accounting policies. Those are described in Note 1 to the financial statements. And I'm happy to report that there were no matters that came to our attention that require us to inform you about the effect of significant accounting policies that are controversial or lacking authoritative guidance. Also, no matters have come to our attention that requires us to inform you about methods used for significant unusual transactions. I'm going to pick it up now fairly quickly. As we said, there's certain accounting estimates that are inherent in every governmental financial statement. They include depreciation expense, an estimate of claims and judgments, compensated absences, landfill closure and post-closure care costs, net pension liability, and OPEB, which are determined by third parties and presented on your financial statements. There were no disagreements with management, which always makes things a little bit more pleasant and easy to get through. We've asked and have obtained written representation from management on certain issues and disclosures in the financial statements. You did not consult with other accountants, which is kind of taboo in the auditing world. It's called opinion shopping, and you have not done that, so I was happy to hear about that. And no matters discussed and our responses thereto or conditioned or to our retention as auditors. We're independent by nature. We have to be. We're here to affirm to you that we are independent as it relates to the town of Riverhead. And there are corrected and uncorrected misstatements that generally come up in an audit. The only one that we have that is an uncorrected adjustment is a $263,000 amount, which we consider immaterial and not relevant to a reader's conclusion about the financial statements. And it has to do with the dispute with Suffolk County on the sewer charges, which I'll go over in a second. It's just more on that. Internal control over financial statements, as I previously discussed, planning, performing the audit, we consider the town's internal controls over financial reporting as a basis for designing auditing procedures. We do that routinely in an audit. This is just a description of the various categories of internal control situations. One is the deficiency of internal control. One is a significant deficiency, which is more significant than obviously the deficiency. And then there's a material weakness. So we're here today to let you know that we do have two material weaknesses that are being reported in the financial statements. One relates to the prior period adjustment. This, again, has to do with the sewer dispute with Suffolk County and the jail. There was a $2.5 million prior year overstatement, of receivables, and that was offset by a $720,000 understatement of sewer usage charges and receivables on unbilled sewer charges. There's also a material weakness on the Justice Court. You're required to report up to New York State your Justice Court audits, your audits of cash receipts and cash disbursements. So the town is tardy on those. We've done that reporting. So we can talk about that at another time, unrelated to the financial statements. But I welcome anybody's questions on that. Internal control of financial reporting. There was one fund had a deficit. That was a special trust fund that both are can fill in the details on that, but it generally related to a deficit that was anticipated to be funded, and it's a small deficit, $548,000, was anticipated to be funded bonded debt. The bonded window closed, and therefore bonding is not an option for closing that deficit. So that requires you to deal with that from an operational standpoint going forward. And I believe that there is a plan for that. On the horizon, it almost seems silly to talk about on horizon when we're talking about being 2020. 2020 is in the rearview mirror. There is really one major GASB. It's a Governmental Accounting Standards Board statement, GASB 84, which has to do with fiduciary activities regarding the trust and agency and geography changes on certain liabilities that used to be in TNA are now going to come over to the funds along with cash. There's some other things related to debt that really direct borrowings. The town doesn't do direct borrowings and direct placements. And another major GASB is equity interest, of which you have none. And then in 2021, there will be some additional GASBs being issued, fast and furious. 2022, the major one that's going to affect the town is a long delayed, but now issued statement, GASB 87, regarding leases. There's also some other ones, conduit debt, which has to do with IDAs. And then there's an omnibus of a bunch of clarifications on prior issued GASBs. And everybody knows that that LIBOR is going away. That's GASB 93. And then there's fast and furious more GASBs coming down the pike for 2023. So that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions. I'm sorry that took a little bit longer than I hoped to get through. I apologize on that.
Yes, Jeffrey, I have a question concerning the Justice Court. You said that we were tardy in our audits. I understand that there is some paperwork concerns.
Yeah, so those audits go back to 2016.
Okay,
So we performed the audits for 2016, 17, 18, and 19 at this point. Those audits were performed. All the audit procedures were performed. And the wrap-up of those procedures involved certain communications to be signed by the justices. And that paperwork is held up, and I'm not really sure why, but it's held up, and I can't issue my report until I get those communications.
okay, so we're gonna have to look into that, Bill, to follow up on what needs to be done in that regard, because it is 4 years of audits that we should be made aware of. Bill, can you just expand on that a little bit, come forward?
So there are 3 audits that the town does. This is the basic financial statement audit. We also have a community preservation fund audit, which has to be done by someone other than the firm producing this audit. And then we have the Justice Court audit. The Justice Court audit has been done those 4 years, as Jeff has mentioned, they're completed, and he's waiting on sign-offs by the judges. In order to do that, there's something called a management representation letter that needs to be signed off on that states certain things, like we've opened up all our books and made them available and things of that nature. So they're waiting on that to be done in order to release those 4 years.
Okay. So they commenced on the audit and it's pretty much complete, it's a matter of
Yes.
going back and forth. So, can you follow up on that?
I will.
When this matter gets rectified, make sure that the board is aware, and is this audit report online
Yes.
on our website?
Which ones, the Justice Court?
No,
This one, yes,
yeah,
this one.
the basic.
Yes, it is.
Okay, it's put up online so the public can review. And I just want to make note, because I was personally involved, last February, the audit had made a recommendation concerning our infrastructure, that it wasn't secure, our computer.
IT infrastructure,
It was
yes.
part of their audit report. And Jeff, I just want to let you know that all those matters have been rectified. We hired IT professional. We have a backup system now. We are backing up to the cloud. We're backing up at another location here in Town Hall and even in Indiana. And we also have we also have a business continuity plan in place, and those were recommendations that the last auditor made, and we did in 2019,
In
we
2020
did
we
rectify
did.
them. And that's good, because what happened, a month later, the pandemic hit, and it was so critical for us to have our infrastructure. And, anybody have questions for the auditors? Tim?
So, yeah, that was actually noted in the report. The IT situation was in here. And now these are, this is the, I looked at this all over, these are the criteria and the conditions and what they are recommending for us, correct? So I'm just checking with you. I'm sure you looked it over as well, and wanted to confirm with you that we're able to adhere to all of the recommendations that are made for us?
Well, I'm going to go through material weaknesses quickly.
Okay.
Those are the three that Jeff mentioned. I just want to let you know how they occurred and where we are with them. The prior period adjustment, as you know, with the county, we had 2 claims against the county. One was for the 1/4% sales tax, and the other one was for their pilot payment for the usage or for us cleaning their sludge. So when we originally prepared the financials, the unaudited financials, we had not gotten a final determination from the courts saying that we had lost that lawsuit. So we prepared them as if we were still receiving them, because until they determined that, we had it as a receivable. Between our unaudited financials and these financials, that changed. The court then made a determination. That's why that comment is there, okay? The Justice Court audit, what Jeff was talking about in this material weakness, was not being sent up to the state timely, being the judge's receipts. If you remember the unfortunate passing of a judge last year, we had to then try and report to the state his last 2 months' worth of receipts. And we had to go through a legal process. The board had to give authority for other people in the town to do that, and that was the main reason for that comment. The third comment on the bottom of that page is, has to do with a $1 million worth of improvements at EPCAL for a ball field that we never went out and bonded for. And when that bond period expired 10 years later, we had to fill that revenue, because we normally put bond revenues, that's how we fund certain expenditures. So that wasn't bonded for, so therefore we had to come up with another revenue. There's no other revenue other than the general fund to fill that. We still weren't at a point where we had money in the general fund to do that. So the board at that point passed a resolution to pay down that debt, basically, over time. We were going to try and hit 100,000 a year, 50,000 if we couldn't. And at the end of 2019, we were at 500,000, 548,000, or some number like that. Well, in 2020, we're going to pay the rest of it off, because we didn't spend a lot of that money that we had, so we're going to pay that off, and that comment will go away in 2020's audit. So those are the three that are material. There's a reason for them. I'm harping on those because the other ones are not material in relation to the financial statements, and these are. So I just know some board members that are new may not understand that completely, may not even been exposed to some of what happened in the past, so I was giving you a little bit of history on those. So on the other comments, if you want to go through them, some of them are just clerical things that may have happened in the past. We may not have had documentation. If you remember, we had a purchasing agent that had gotten ill, and we didn't always have the documentation we needed, because she was here, she wasn't here, we had people filling in for her. And that relates to some of these comments. But if you have ones in specific ones that you have questions on, I'll be sure to answer them.
No, a lot of them, Bill, were, I mean, I saw that they didn't seem like things that would be that challenging for us to fix. That's why I was asking you. I mean, some of them were just on how money was collected or how inventory was done, things like that. And I just wanted to confirm that all of these things are things that can be fixed and put
They're all
into
things
place.
that are fixed. They're all things that can be fixed. Some of them have been fixed, as the supervisor mentioned, as far as our IT infrastructure. Other ones are stuff that, as I mentioned in a work session before, we need to go out there, we meaning my department needs to go out there and check and do certain internal audits on things, whether it's cash collections and things like that. Those are the things that happen over time if we're not there looking on a regular basis. So all of these things have been fixed. The process, one of the things the auditors do is they go to the department heads and say, how does this work? And we say, we do this, this, and this. Well, if they find an instance where they didn't do that, it becomes a comment. If they didn't put it as part of their processes, it wouldn't be a comment. In this case, there were certain times where they found instances where maybe there was cash that stayed in the safe overnight that should have been deposited before the end of the day. So all those things have been taken care of, and all those things will continue to be looked at. We rely on the department heads to do that, but my department should be checking up periodically on it.
So your department, you will actually meet, because they're different departments, and then you
Yeah.
will meet with those departments and let them know the areas, because they were different departments. All right,
Yep,
thank
and
you,
we
Bill.
And we have, and we will continue to, yes.
Okay.
All right, Bill, overall, I want to commend you. I've seen many, many budgets in my life, and these are very, very minor things that, and you said most of them were corrected. I'm happy to see that there's no unusual or significant transactions, because that would be critical. And also, there's no discrepancies that arose as far as the audit, and that's a common thing that happens when people start checking with other people what's going on. And, you know, I commend the PKF for their professionalism. This is a well put together. I see that you have a roadmap, and you included all the accounting principles. Myself as knowing accounting and the business, I see that you followed your roadmap, and good product. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like
Thank
to
you.
just take a moment to thank Jeff and Jennifer as well. This was a great overview of the finances of the 2019 period, and I thought it was very illuminating, and I appreciate your help on the matter.
Thank you Supervisor, thank you Town Board, and thank you Mr. Rothar and his department for an efficient and effective audit and professionalism that we encountered during the audit. So thank you so much.
So just one last comment. Now that this audit is done, we have 1 year left on the last RFP that we did for the audit. So we are going to, other than the name change, we're going to appoint ABZ again. And then next year, we will go out and do that again, as we do every 5 years.
Thank
That'll
you.
be in the next board meetings packet.
Well, just a question. This is the audit from 2019.
Correct.
I know it's come up before. How is it possible, and I know you can explain this, I just need some clarification. How is it possible for us to put a budget together for the year 2021 when we didn't have the audit from 2019 and the audit from 2020?
Okay.
How is it that, I need it a little clearer in my head.
So one of the comments that we talked about was on the of money due from the county, right? And we had made a change after that. Our annual financial update that's not audited is due April 30th. We send it up to New York State. Then this audit is due September 30th if we have a single audit, or December 31st if we don't. In that time period, something changed in this case, and that's why that comment is there, because then they found out that we have a different receivable. Well, since everything is done, and we're preparing the budget, we have the final numbers. We just don't have them audited at that point. So we do our 2021 budget based on a 2019. One of the other things you'll see in our budget for 2021 is halfway through the year where we are with our revenues and expenditures. And we go on, based on those, we go on historical numbers, the last 3 years' worth of spending and things like that, in order to produce that budget. Last year, again, was particularly difficult because we had the county and the state saying we weren't receiving the same grants or funds that we did from the
Yes.
previous year. But we knew about that, so we were able to plan for that in the budget. So we have all of our numbers, but for the sign-off by the CPA firm that has been audited, we kind of know what they are.
Okay.
Okay.
A little better in my mind now.
Good, good.
And Bill, thanks for being
I
patient
think he's
with me
saying the
explaining
numbers
all
are
this to
there,
the new
but
guy.
they didn't do the
Right,
actual
yeah,
audit.
exactly.
So they're not gonna change, because they're gonna work from those numbers, but they have to.
They're a pretty good guesstimate.
Yeah.
I mean, when you submit to the state, it's even better than a guesstimate, I would say.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you submit that, you know what you have to present to us in order to form the budget.
And the same thing is presented to them also. They
Right.
just have to go through the process and interview, and it's very lengthy. So, good.
But I also think it's good you asked the question, because I'm sure there are people watching who are wondering that as well, so.
Yeah, it
I
kind of
think it was
doesn't
good to
make
clear
sense
that
to me,
up.
but,
Because I think people in the public would be wondering why we're looking at 2019.
Even in a year where we have a single audit and it's due by September 30th, our budget is done. It's due to the clerk, the supervisor's budget is due by September 30th. So even the timing of that, if the audit came out 2 weeks earlier, it's still confirming our numbers. And again, in this case, it was a receivable, what we expect to collect that change, not what we actually collected, or what we actually paid.
Perfect. Great. Thank you, Bill. Have a great day.
thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
so moving forward, next we have Cindy Clifford and Michelle Lynch with the Anti-Bias Task Force with an update on anti-bias training and possible police community Zoom meetings. Catherine and Chief Hager-Miller are the Riverhead Town liaisons to the Anti-Bias Task Force, and I will turn it off. Is the chief here yet? I know he had a Zoom.
Yeah, Chief is still on the Zoom, but Anne Marie's here until he finishes up.
Okay, so, Anne Marie, can you introduce the topic, and Catherine, you'll weigh in on that after that? And then, Chip will bring forward the, two guest speakers today. Good morning.
Good morning. It's my understanding that the Anti-Bias Task Force, the chairwoman and vice chairwoman, wanted to appear before the town board to discuss and obtain approval for anti-bias training. The anti-bias training, the board is likely aware, it was anticipated that sometime last year, the members of the Anti-Bias Task Force would receive training. I think in part due to COVID, you know, a lot of those plans and training programs didn't go forward. I think they're going to explain to you that they've done considerable research. They have a recommendation as to who can do the training. I think their research demonstrated that they actually saved a lot of money from the program that they had initially wanted to do a year ago. That's it. I'll let them take it from there.
Great. Cindy, can you
Well,
hear us?
Yeah, and I did want to make a point, the point, you made it though, that what they did find a way to do the training at a considerable cost savings to the town and to the group, to the funds that they get.
Cindy?
Okay, first
Good
of all, I want
morning.
to thank you for letting us join you today. And in the interest of being respectful of your time and knowing the workload that you manage, we wanted to present 3 current and most promising proposals to gain your approval. We'll do the quick sum-ups, and then we'll answer any questions and concerns. I'd like to turn it over now to the Vice Chair, Michelle Lynch.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for letting us present this. So the one thing I'm going to speak on is in the implicit bias training. And as Anne Marie Prudenti had said, we did extensive research, and the Anti-Bias Task Force secured an offer from Professor James Banks to conduct implicit bias training. He has provided this trainings to towns on the North and South Forks and throughout Suffolk County. Just about any implicit bias training can explain the definitions and issues associated with implicit bias, but this training will do that also, but operate on the premise you can't train away racism and implicit bias. We need to transplant the hearts of people and inspire feelings to change ideas, beliefs, and thereby encourage alternative behaviors. So this training will include each session has 3 modules. So the first module would be bias and discrimination. The second one would be self-discovery. And the third one would be transformation and healing. The training session, as I said, will consist of 3 modules. Each module would be 2 hours, and the number of participants can be up to 50 people. It would be and the cost would be $1,200. We would like to make this training available not simply to members of the Anti-Bias Task Force, but to town department heads, town officials, justice court employees, recreation other employees, especially anyone who interacts with the public. Chief Hager-Miller, as was mentioned, is a liaison to the Anti-Bias Task Force. He informed us that his officers received the implicit bias training in the academy and that the officers are trained to give the training to other officers in the Riverhead Police Department. He is recommending that all civilian police personnel attend the implicit bias training. We also would like to see a select number of Riverhead School District representatives and high school, middle school students, as well as members of the school board, the Riverhead ambulance members, local fire departments, including any members of the public and others that the town board would want to recommend. So we are asking consideration for funding through the S-Power Community Benefit Agreement from the funding category, the Town of Riverhead Advancement and Promotion of Education and Employment Initiative. Any
Okay,
questions?
so, thank you. And Cindy, did you want to make a statement?
Yes, we have two other quick approval requests, and then we'll have a discussion, if that's okay. Like I said, we're very sensitive to the amount of time that you have and that we want to take. The second thing we're asking for approval for is an event called Synergy, recognizing that most encounters with the police department are not casual or necessarily comfortable. The Synergy program creates room for a 45 to 60-minute conversation between the police and the community. It's in the interest of increasing communication, of mutual respect and trust, and promoting goodwill. Synergy is already a successful program on the North and South Forks. As a matter of fact, Southold Police Chief Martin Flatley, who participates 3 times a year in Synergy events in Southold, gave our Chief Hagemiller a call and offered his personal recommendation. So we set up a meeting between the chief and the facilitators of the program. They explained the details, we had a discussion, answered some questions, and the chief is wholeheartedly behind bringing this program to Riverhead. There is no charge for it. It would be on Zoom. Pre-registration would be required so that we would know who was coming in. They would have to receive a meeting link from us, and we would be admitting them. So it would be, the participating officers could be very comfortable with this. And because we would be getting questions submitted ahead of time, they could be prepared for the kind of things we'd be talking about. So we think that's a really excellent event, and we'd really like approval to start moving forward on that. We figure it's going to take, at least a month or two to be able to get the word out and get enough of a response to make it worth everyone's time. And the third request is, in order for us to get enough of a community outreach for events like Synergy, we would like very much for the board to consider letting us have an Anti-Bias Task Force Facebook page. We know that the Recreation Department has one, but ours would be more announcements only. It would be open to anyone to join or follow and like, but no comments would be permitted whatsoever, so we just reduce any kind of static or opportunity for any problems. We also feel that a Facebook presence would help us easily and repeatedly and efficiently reach out to the community without any expenditure, and at the same time be raising the awareness of the Anti-Bias Task Force so that the town can know that Riverhead Town is behind trying to make us a more united community. So those are our 3 proposals that we would like you to consider. And if there are any questions or any concerns that might hold back your approval, we'd very much like to address them now.
All right, Cindy, so the civilian personnel in the police department, your first initiative, I believe we may have funding for that. I think it's a great idea. Bill, can you come forward? Is there funding? This is educational, correct? Is there funding for the education component of this?
That would be through the
Can you
S-Power.
step forward, please?
We do have in the community benefit fund, we do have, I
150,000.
think we still have looks like we have 135,000 left in that fund for education.
Yeah, but doesn't the anti-bias have a $3,000 budget?
Yes.
And that's also, okay,
For 2021, none of that has been spent yet,
okay.
to my knowledge. I
So
can check
we
with
do
Ed.
have the money for that kind of training?
Yes.
Okay, and the second, Cindy, the events in the Synergy, I think it's a great it sounds great. It's not costing us any money. We're always very
Not
mindful
costing
about.
anything. Nope, not even water, because we'll do it on Zoom, so everybody can have their own water.
Bring
Bring
your
your
own.
We
own
like
snack.
that price.
Bring
That
your
sounds like
own,
a good
huh?
price for us.
So I think it's a great idea. I am fully aware that they are doing it in the North Fork, and I know that the chief in the North Fork is happy with it. He's expressed it. I'm glad it's not very lengthy. It's not gonna take, probably an hour, you stated, 50 to 60 minutes?
Yeah, they said 45 minutes to an hour. We think at the time that it starts to wind down, we go, thanks for coming.
Okay. And your last component was the Facebook page,
Yes.
I just, guys are mindful, and I know Anne Marie has shared this with you, that you are ambassadors of us, so anything that gets put out in the community needs to go through us. As far as the no comments, I guess, Anne Marie, I'm gonna leave that to you, if you wanna come forward and discuss that.
Sure. So, when the topic came up with the anti-bias task force, I did represent to them that, because there was a thought of creating a page, Friends of Riverhead Anti-Bias, and I said, whenever you're utilizing the committee name and posting it, it is a representation of the town.
It is.
I like the idea of the no comment page, and, I'd like to do a little bit more research, but I believe our other Facebook pages are actually Town of Riverhead Facebook pages. So if we created, were you nodding your head, Chip? So when we, any page would be under the auspices of the Town of Riverhead.
Yeah, we're aware of that.
And what,
Very
what
aware of
we-
it.
Yeah, and what we've done, so when it's termed like a anti-bias task force page, it's actually a Town of Riverhead page. And we, not we, but, collectively, the committee, through their liaison and the town board, it's town Facebook page who puts the information up and on. So I think we could have a meeting of the minds and work together and accomplish that goal. So Supervisor, I just did want to go back to the first point, because Vice Chair Michelle Lynch, the way she expressed it and the way I've understood it from participating in the meetings with the Anti-Bias Task Force, as to the training, it's $1,200 for 50 people. I think the Anti-Bias Task Force wanted the ability to expand that to potentially, if there was interest and then the town board approved, to 100 people. So in other words, the ability for Anti-Bias Task Force members, possibly department heads, members of Justice Court, recommended by the Chief of Police. You had, I forgot his title, I apologize, he just retired, Palmer?
Palmer.
Tim Palmer, he had recommended the representatives of the fire district, then the recreation department, and I think the goal of the anti-bias task force, and including members of the school, I think their goal was, because it is in fact educational in nature, and because it is expanding beyond the town and its committee, and it's really community involved, they were hoping that this town board would approve those monies, those funds, even if they did 2 modules, that would be $2,400 coming out of the education fund under the community benefit fund. That money was established back in December of 2019 and is there. And, I don't want to speak or advocate for them, but I can share with the board, while they have a budget of $3,000, they've been very active in communications with the Riverhead School District. And I can share with all of you that the Riverhead School District shared that it's rolling out a new educational program for young African-American boys. And chances are they're going to look to seek funding through the Anti-Bias Task Force, who would then bring that to the town board. And I think they're looking for the monies in their budget, and there was also a poster program that the school wanted to do for, I believe, elementary school and middle school children, and they were seeking help with the posters and the material. And I think that's why the Anti-Bias Task Force was looking to utilize the education fund, because they know over the course of the next year, they're going to come to the town board within the parameters of their $3,000 budget and ask for your permission to utilize that money for other projects.
And Anne Marie, is the school district on board with this type of training?
Absolutely.
It's
I don't
great.
want to speak for the school, but the chair and vice chair, there's
Cindy,
members
have
of
you
the
spoken
school.
to the
Yeah, if I
Riverhead?
could just chime in 1 minute. There are people on, there is a representative from the school districts that's on our committee. And she did, well, they were there that night and when we had this discussion and they did weigh in. I also wanted to mention one other point because this is, the training is sort of a partnership with Suffolk Community College, correct? Isn't this is someone through Suffolk Community College? Which I think is
The
great.
facilitator is a
Which is-
professor there.
right,
and
which
has
is
done
also
this
good.
work throughout the county.
So I just wanted to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. So if it's put out to the public at large and you only get 50 responses, then we would only need to take 1,200 out of the CPF. However, if you put it out to more, is that the way that's going to work?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. The public at large will, if you're talking about the implicit bias training,
Yes.
right, that the public at large is not going to be invited as a whole. What we want to do first is make sure that we utilize this program for everyone in the town and the legs of the town that has interface with the public.
All I was
That's
trying
our-
to determine
That's our
is
principal drive.
yeah,
If
not
there
not
are
who's coming, but the amount of people. So
Yes, of course.
So if you don't get 100,
yeah,
you're
if you
gonna
don't
pay
get
for
100, we're not paying $2,400.
No, it's $1,200.
Okay.
I mean, he would do it for 20 people. It's a
Okay.
maximum of
Okay.
50 per session.
That's what I
That's
wanted to
great.
understand. I
Right,
just
but
stated it.
originally, the other program we'd been looking at, I believe that was 2,800 for one session. Is that right, Michelle? Do you remember?
It was 3,000 for 4 parts, 4 months, but it was $3,000. And I had, how many people? It was up to like 30 people. But with this one, we're asking for the money from that because, like, if you think of all the town employees that interact with the public and the departments that I mentioned, the recreation, the justice, the police department, civilians, and other town employees that interact, and then if we include the school district, and if we can get the Riverhead ambulance members to participate, fire departments, we're looking at, for 4 sessions, say, that's 200 people. That's really not a lot, and that would be $4,800.
And since the chief came, maybe the chief, you could just come up and say that you were in agreement, you thought it was a good idea, because we did talk about that earlier, but you were in a Zoom. And it was a lengthy discussion that night, thinking about, which I think Anne Marie touched on too, thinking about people that have come in contact with a lot of people, and that's where we were kind of trying to focus in on.
Morning.
Good morning.
Is it still morning?
Is it?
Yes.
My
Almost
stomach's
seems like
saying
afternoon.
lunchtime for sure. Yeah, no, I definitely am in support of the training, especially to all layers of the government.
Great, thank you.
I'm glad that you're reaching out beyond, just the police department. We're thinking about town employees and interacting, and I like that you go into the fire departments as well. The money's there in your budget, so I would certainly agree to utilize it to continue. And then, so I'm for it, absolutely.
Just to clarify, we're asking, as Anne Marie had said, through the S-Power Community Benefit Agreement.
Yeah, and Cindy, I'm going to circle back because I don't feel I got the answer, and I know it's an easy answer. So, is the Riverhead School District aware of this effort?
Of the implicit bias training?
Yes.
Yes, they
Yes.
are. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
We said,
great.
we had, Lori Kerner, who represents the school district as a liaison, was present at our meeting when we first talked about it. And she's 100%. I mean, the school district is very interested in expanding thinking and reducing implicit bias however they can. So we're also looking at this as an opportunity to create a ripple effect. If we can change the thinking and change the perceptions of people by helping them understand how a lot of how they look at things was formed early on and isn't necessarily true, they can pass that information on. I mean, originally we were thinking department heads because those department heads could, help it like sift down to the people that work for them. But then we thought it would be so much better if we could just, the more people we get on board, the more people who have the experience of this training and the benefits of this training, there has to be a little bit of a ripple effect at least. So, in the school district, for them to take this and go back and have this education and this knowledge is wildly beneficial for them.
And certainly, since you're touching on lots of different groups, it gets the conversation going.
Absolutely.
Even outside of the training, it gets the conversation going. So thank you guys very much for the work that you're doing.
And thank you so much for your time, really. We appreciate it.
And just to let you know, this can be held either the AM or the PM, whatever will work best for everyone.
All right, Cindy and Michelle, you can coordinate the efforts with Anne Marie, and can you
Yes.
follow through on this? I'm glad that the Riverhead School District is totally on board. It looks like you did your homework. You did a lot of work. And Anne Marie, you're tasked with moving this forward in
Right, so.
whatever capacity necessary.
I would have to prepare a resolution, as we consistently do, for use of community benefit funds. I just need the dollar limit to put in. Are you gonna do 2,400 or not to exceed 5,000 for the training? I'll just, I need that from the town board, and I'll prepare the resolution and put it up before you.
Okay,
Is it something that
perfect.
could be done for $2,400 and then, and so that
But
if we get,
And then tax out their
based
whole
on how
budget.
many people are registering to take the
Right.
class, and then you'll know to better adjust the finances, so at
Well,
least you're prepared
that's
for
what I
100.
like to do, if the town board would agree. Our financial administrator said in that fund, we have 135,000. If the town board, if there's consensus today, I'll word it not to exceed 5,000. So if it's only the one module, 50 people, it'd be 1,200. If they expand it, but we have to have some type of limit in there, and I think.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that kind of
I am
wording. That
too.
would
I
be
think
great,
that
yeah.
works.
And I want to also thank Cindy and Michelle, and it was great working with you as the liaison last year. And you guys do a great job, and thanks for doing what you do.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you. Take care,
Thank you
everybody.
both.
All right, be safe.
You too.
Thank you, everyone. This concludes our discussion items for today. There are no executive session items. So can I have a first and a second to close this meeting, please?
Motion?
Second, all right.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Everyone be safe. And anything concerning vaccinations, please call our senior hotline.